Just to be clear on this, Madam President, I think, so this is some of the delay, I guess, some of why it took so long to put these all together, or trying to assimilate this, because you've got this kind of confusion and.
Correct.
And with Maricopa County refusing to answer any questions as to help us understand what you did here.
And
right?
there may be some explanation as to how and why serial numbers get duplicated. It doesn't seem like a good practice any way that you look at it, but if it's well documented and there's some easy way for things to be audited, then you're in good shape. But that's one of the problems we've run into, is that so many of the issues we've encountered through things makes it very difficult, if not impossible, in order to audit things. And it's our goal in going through there to give some irrefutable proof to make sure that we know that things were solid or that they're not. And these types of problems make it very difficult for us to be able to say absolutely on certain aspects.
Continue. Is that everything on the hand count ballots?
I believe that's everything in hand counts.
Okay, would you like to move on to paper examination issues that you need answers to?
Yes, please. Okay. So we utilized kinematic artifact detection in order to take a look at all of the ballots in order to process to figure out how they work and how they function. And if we can actually get Exhibit D up, please. Go ahead and scroll down. So on every single, I had it mislabeled as E, but it's actually D. Ballots are designed as such so that when you fill out one side of the ballot, it's very important that that if you fill out a bubble, and does happen to bleed through, it doesn't do so in a manner that would actually impact the way the vote was cast. So ballots are designed in the manner to make that so. In order to make sure they're actually aligned, on one side of the ballot, there is the circle and X's that you see in this. And on the other side of the ballot, there's actually printed a cross. And when a ballot is properly aligned, that cross will actually line up perfectly. If you backlight it, this cross will actually line up perfectly. And that's actually the image you're looking at. We have a backlit image of a ballot, and you're seeing on the front side the circle and the cross, and the inside it's very similar to, say, like a gun sight. Now, if you look carefully at that top image, you'll actually notice that it's a little bit offset. Based on standards, that's actually the maximum it's supposed to be offset for a ballot to be viewed as valid and processed, so there aren't any issues with it. If you take a look at that image down at the bottom, you'll notice that it's 1900%. This is actually something from an actual ballot out of Maricopa County that we ran into, where it was out of calibration. And just to give a little bit more perspective, if we scroll down in the PDF to the next section, we actually have two batches here. We're still running this process through all the batches, but this graphic, you want to be in the bullseye. The bullseye in the center is actually the check marks on how offset those things should be. And just to be specific, from a calibration standpoint, I think it's supposed to be within 100% of in it, and we made our box about 300% from the way this is calibrated. And you'll see that the average is actually, take on the top right-hand corner, the average on this is actually 1,024%, and the worst ballot was 3,200%. You can see there's two different batches that we have in here as examples. Now,
So, Madam President, Mr. Logan, so what happens to these ballots? What's if this happens, if they're off, the reading off, then what's the result?
Okay,
How is this dealt with in an election?
So if you actually go to the next exhibit, we'll talk through that here. So if they're offset, what it means is if it bleeds through, it can potentially cause an overvote. It can potentially cause you to vote for someone that you intend to vote for, or so forth, because the bleed of one side's bubble can go so forth to the other side and get within the area would be categorized for the other bubble. Now, specifically, we should not have had problems with bleed through. If you scroll down a little bit farther and zoom in where we've got the red box, this is actually a newsletter that was put out by Maricopa County that talks about the paper types that are utilized. And specifically, they state that they use vote-secure paper. Now, if vote-secure paper is utilized, it's actually a thick paper. It has a special coating on it that helps make sure there isn't bleed-through. And so it would help ensure that bleed-through wouldn't be a problem, even if things happen to be not perfectly calibrated. But if you scroll down to the next page, we're going to give you an example of an actual ballot where you can see the bleed-through that goes through. And you can see that the bleed-through is actually very, very close to where votes are cast. Now, as part of additional analysis, we're going to try to get a better idea as to when or if this did impact votes and did impact values. It does require additional analysis in here. But specifically, this is an indication of problems that could cause an overvote situation or could cause votes to be cast for a different candidate than intended.
So let me clarify something. I want to make sure I get this straight, because this was an issue early on, right after the election. So Maricopa County, you're saying on their website, said that they only use secure paper, which does not allow for bleed-through. Correct?
Correct. This is actually a newsletter from them, but yes.
Okay, their newsletter. And so if that is correct, there is no way there would be bleed-through as what we're seeing on the ballots.
Yeah, based on our discussions with paper experts, they specifically state that that paper is thick enough that it wouldn't bleed through, and we are seeing a lot of very thin paper stock being utilized, especially on election day.
Okay. Was this done with, does this happen with just magic markers, or does it happen with ballpoint pens? Do you know that answer? I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
I would expect that, with Sharpies, the bleed-through would be greater, but it could potentially happen to a lighter amount with regular ballpoint pens as well. Yeah.
Okay. So there was in fact, it was dubbed by some of the media Sharpie Gate at the very beginning, and there were the Maricopa elections people came back and said, no, if there was any bleed-through, it would not have affected other votes because it's not lined up. Are you saying that's true or not true?
We would need more analysis, and their final report will be able to tell you more clearly whether this impacted things or not. But definitely, if there was an offset that was in the right direction, the right way, and there was bleed through, it could definitely impact the ballot.
Okay. One more question. Going back to this one on this phase right here, the pictures you had, what would cause that X or that mark to be out of that far of alignment? What causes that?
So if the printer is not properly calibrated, when it prints the second side of the page, it's actually offset, so it's not perfectly aligned. So it could be a number of different things involved, and probably printer calibration would be the key thing for it.
So would this be printer calibration with the people that printed the ballots, the main ballots, and aren't there printers like at the voting sites that they can print?
Yeah.
So it could be any of those printers?
So most of from what I understand, most of the ballots that were printed at Runbeck, that we can confirm of Runbeck, were pretty much spot on. But there's a lot of ballot on demands that are printed at the actual voting centers, and those had large offsets.
Do we know how many ballots on demand there were or not? Is there any records of
So it would
those?
be roughly 168,000, which would be the election day ballots.
So those were all ballots on demand?
Yeah, we are seeing more than that where this offset occurred. And so we're trying to drill into what printers and where and what that's tied to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, continue. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I think that was everything.
Okay.
To cover.
So let's go to, let me back up to the paper examination issue too. How do we verify, so Maricopa County is saying we only use 4 types of paper and they're all secure, and we're saying they're not. How do we prove that? What is the best way to get that documentation to say what the truth really is? Can you help me with that?
Yeah, certainly. We can request information on the purchasing of paper that was utilized for ballots, what their quantities were and where they were utilized. We can get information on what printers were utilized at different locations, and all of that can help tie together to make more sense out of the information we have.
Great, thank you. Would you be able to make a list of that for me so that we can try and ask for that information for you?
Yes, ma'am.